Joining us now, ABC's Elizabeth Schulze at the White House, also ABC News State Department reporter and producer Shannon Crawford. Also, our chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is there in the room at the White House. As soon as she gets up on mic, we'll talk with her as well. But Elizabeth, let's start with you. Modi has not held a single press conference in India since becoming prime minister about 9 years ago. He's targeted journalists. He's refused to take questions. Why do you think he played ball here? And as we just heard, the first question was all about human rights.
Understandably, that first question was, what are you actually going to do in your government, Prime Minister Modi, to address these concerns and the reality of these human rights violations? And of course, he pushed back, saying that India is a strong democracy. This is something of a theme that we've heard both from the Prime Minister and from President Biden in this official state visit, trying to say that they are working here together to strengthen those democratic ties. But no doubt about it, the president also acknowledged that those violations of human rights, the crackdown on India's government from its critics, was a topic of conversation in this meeting that they're having here today at the White House. But also kind of overhanging this entire conversation, Kira, was the question of China. And we did hear the president say that he thinks that cooling of relationships with China is still on track at this point.
All right, and Mary, I understand you're still there in the room there. We have contact with you. President Biden under a lot of pressure, by fellow Democrats to raise human rights concerns with Modi. Do you think this will come up behind closed doors? Because clearly it was touched on briefly and then moved on to other subjects on behalf of both leaders.
Yeah, I think this is not the end of this conversation, and I just don't think we can highlight enough how what we saw here in this room was, in fact, very historic. That is the first time in Prime Minister Modi's 9-year tenure that he has ever taken a live question like this from a reporter in a press conference. It is something that, we in the United States of America may take for granted, but this is a very big deal. And to have him, of course, answering questions, about what has been, quite honestly, an erosion of press freedom, political freedom, religious freedom in India during his tenure is a remarkable moment that I think we need you can't stress enough. Of course, if he hadn't answered that question, it would have only served to underscore concerns about democratic values in India. And so, as Elizabeth said, yes, you heard the Prime Minister coming out and insisting that, India is a democracy, pushing back and in many ways sort of brushing off a lot of the concerns that you are seeing, from human rights advocates, also from members of Congress. And of course, the Prime Minister is now making his way across town to the Hill to address Congress. But I think you will continue, to see these issues being raised. And President Biden is having to do what we have seen presidents have to do in the past. This is a delicate balance, right? On the one hand, of course, he is trying to strengthen the relationship between the U.S. and India, as we have seen, a rise in the power of China, Russian aggression, obviously. So this is, a relationship that the president is trying to shore up at the same time as he wants to make sure that India continues to move forward and protect those democratic values. So the president, not lecturing him, but certainly bringing up these issues, Kira.
Well, the trip clearly fraught with trade-offs, right? Biden has a strategy regarding Asia. The question is, at what cost? How do you see this playing out? I mean, there's definitely a quid pro quo, both leaders wanting that.
Yeah, I do think it was interesting. One of the main topics here of discussion, of course, is what role is India going to play in countering Russian aggression, the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Now, so far, you have not seen India being willing to join the U.S.-led coalition to help support Ukraine. But you did hear Modi say that he is, willing to stand with Ukraine going forward. The question is, what exactly does that look like? And then, to hit on what Elizabeth hit on earlier, the other big news coming out of this press conference, of course, is what the president said, on his comments earlier in the week about President Xi of China. There has been a real effort by this administration to try and thaw relations between the U.S. and Beijing. We just saw Secretary of State Blinken over there meeting with President Xi. And just a few days ago, though, behind closed doors at a fundraiser, the president suggesting that President Xi is a dictator, bringing up, the shooting down of that Chinese spy balloon and saying that President Xi didn't like that because he was unaware that the spy balloon was there, saying that's not something that dictators like. The president pushed on whether, this essentially was setting back any progress that has been made. Biden brushing that off, saying, no, he was just speaking about the facts. And he did make news in saying that he does expect to speak with President Xi sometime in the near future. That would be news, Kira.
It sure would. And Shannon, just add to the background here and give us some more context just on the concerns surrounding India's democratic principles and how this trip to the White House might impact them.
Absolutely, Kira. And for the reasons that we've already mentioned, we've seen the crackdown on press freedom, including members of the media in India jailed who work for U.S. publications, as well as what the State Department here calls a reduction of religious freedom for India's Muslim minority. And so these are big issues, and these are really overhanging the entire trip. It's the reason that President Biden has faced backlash himself for hosting Modi at this kind of visit that's full of pomp and circumstance and extending some of that praise, that glowing praise we just saw now.
All right, Elizabeth, Shannon, and Mary, thank you all so much. We'll, of course, continue to follow the visit and what comes. We know that Modi will be speaking before Congress there on the floor about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We will take that as well. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.